Hello everyone, welcome back, and we're here again today for my Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2016 real life sim let's play. And we're heading towards the end of the season really, folks, so we may have touched on last time how we were doing with St John's. We were currently sitting in 4th position in the standings and with a 6-6 record, and we sort of commented saying that we were going to have some tough games coming up. We kind of had been on a bit of a losing streak through our conference play. As you can see here, sort of losing the some key games really to Creighton, DePaul and Seton Hall, who are the front runners for our conference really. And we sort of said that we were going to be in with the running of hopefully getting into the postseason if we could get some results, and let's see how we've done. So last time I think we touched on that we just recently lost to Villanova, and we'd had this streak, as I said, of just terrible losses really. And I think commented on in the last episode that we were really going to have to try and win at least 60-65% of our games at least to be in with a shot of making the postseason and staying in that top 4. And we've done really well. We've sort of gone on a bit of a winning streak, which has really sort of helped us. So we had the first game against Providence, which we got a good win on. We came out really well and we sort of dominated the game really. I think this is probably one of our best shooting performances of the year across the team in terms of field goal percentage, and our 3-point shooting was excellent as well. The guy who kind of stood out for us in this game was as you could probably expect, Jim Claggett, who seems to have sort of taken over that star role for us. We moved him over to centre. He's a bit undersized for the position, but we felt that his skill set would hopefully remove a weakness that we did have, where we don't have a natural centre player really, or a natural big guy. So we've been playing small ball for the whole season really. And he had a really good game. He shot 7 of 15, he grabbed 9 rebounds and got the odd assist as well, and had a really good game for us. Our other sort of main star, E.K. Augustine, had some difficulty. He didn't necessarily play very well. It looks like he got into a bit of foul trouble, getting 4 fouls and only lost in 13 minutes. So it's really good that Jim Claggett stepped up for us. And in the backcourt as well, we had a fairly solid game from the guys. We sort of commented on last time, we're kind of limited in the backcourt in that we don't really have any options apart from the 2 guys who are starting in Brown and Cook. The other guys that we've got don't have enough handling ability to play the point position, and the defense is pretty terrible. We know Terence Cook's defense isn't great, but he has some solid handling ability, which hopefully compensates that a little bit. And he had a good game. He shot 5 of 10, shot really well from 3-point line, and he grabbed some rebounds, got some assists, and only a couple of turnovers, so it was really good to see. And I think this game really sort of set the ball rolling for us. We won against Providence. We then went to Marquette and got a win there, which was hopefully expected, because Marquette have been sort of the bottom feeders for our conference this year really. We did squeeze out a win in the end. We sort of had a bit of a terrible second half, as you can see, and we didn't shoot particularly well, but we limited them to some terrible shooting, which really did help. So our defense obviously really got down and shut them down a lot. And as I sort of said in the previous game, Terence Cook had a solid game, and he had another solid game here, obviously winning the player of the game with his 15 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds and 3 steals. So making a bit of a statement there that perhaps we shouldn't have written him off, and we shouldn't have been considering other players. Obviously, like I said, we are limited there, but very good. And I think again you can see our 3-point shooting percentage definitely kept us in this as well. Shooting 53% from 3-point is excellent. And then we went to Xavier and we got another win, which was excellent. It's kept that sort of that momentum going for us, and you can sort of see instantly down here, Jim Claggett was sort of our main go-to guy in this game. He had a fantastic night in terms of scoring the ball. 24 points, only 3 rebounds and an assist and 2 steals. So obviously he didn't grab too many rebounds. As we sort of said, he's a bit undersized there anyway, but he made it count in terms of offense output for us, and he shot 5 of 10 with 50%, which is really good. And again, this was a sort of a game of where we sort of came out the block strong again, and we sort of carried on the momentum and sort of shut Xavier down to 29 points in the second half, which is really, really good. So, you know, overall, we sort of came out and we got some really, really much needed wins, and we then went to Creighton, which is one of the other human coaches in our league, and we completely got beaten left, right and centre really. We didn't start particularly well in this game. We made a fight of it in the second half, but you know, the first half kind of cost us really. And as I sort of said, Abraham Love, the sort of forward position, you know, one of the better forward players in our conference, absolutely dominated us with 19 points, 7 rebounds and 3 blocks. We did shoot fairly well, as you can kind of see, and Jim Claggett did have a solid game again for us, but we just didn't stop them really on offense, so we struggled there a little bit. So overall, we've kind of come off of the back of our sort of next couple of games, and we're 3-1. And for me personally, I was hoping that if we could go 2-2 possibly, that might give us a chance. But to go 3-1 is excellent, and you can kind of see that from the standings here. That, you know, we're 9-7 now, and we're still in that 4th position. You know, kind of tied for 3rd really between us, Butler and Villanova, which is really, really good. And I'm really, really happy with that performance so far. You know, only 2 games left, so we may possibly, you know, end up with a .500 record, you know, if we lose both of those games. But even so, you know, we've had a good season, and we'll still hopefully achieve our team targets. If we'll have a quick look at those now, you can see our sort of team goals were to qualify for the NCAA tournament. Obviously that one's a big stretch, that's a real difficult goal for us. But you can see here, finish top half of the conference. Well, if we look at the conference standings, like I said, even if we go 9-9, we'll probably be middle of the pack. So I'm confident we will achieve that. And to win 15 plus games, you can see from the record up here, we've won 16 games. So we can already tick off one of our 4 team goals really, and improve school prestige. Hopefully that will happen if we, you know, can try and make it to the postseason and get a good finish and a good position in the Big East really. And I am really happy with how we've done so far. You know, to be 4th and to be within a shot of getting up into the sort of the 2nd position is excellent. Considering that we came in a little bit late, we kind of just let the ball roll really, and we haven't been able to obviously recruit. We've got recruits that the AI has given us for next season, so I'm looking to get more of a hand on it next season really, in terms of our recruitment, in terms of our strategy. But we've done really well. If we take a quick look at the guys across the board, let's just see how they've been performing. So like I sort of said, Terence Cook has been our starting point guard for the whole season now, and he's done fairly well. I mean, we know his defense is suspect at sort of a 22 rating. It's not great, but in terms of his shooting, he's been fairly solid, and it's his shooting from 3 that's really been helpful for us. You can see, you know, 48% from 3-point is really, really good, especially that corner 3. Look at that, 100% there. If we take a look at Kurt Brown as well, you can see that, you know, he hasn't got as good a 3-point shot, and his field goal's a little bit touchy, but we're sort of having to play him out of position at the 2 guard position, because we want that defense, because we know that a lot of the other opposition teams have some really good shooting guards. So he's had a solid sort of season. You know, we're not expecting this backcourt to put up too many points. We just need them to be consistent. If they can be consistent, then we do get results. Austin Ricks has played in and out really. His defense isn't particularly great. He's sort of almost a backup to Cook, I'd say. He's not a particularly great shooter, as you can see here, and we've kind of used him very much in limited minutes really, so not too much to talk about him. Kurt Scott, I mean, he has some really good potential, but we haven't really utilised him at all. We've just sort of been focusing on the other guys really. Same with McDevitt. He's sort of been in and out, playing a little bit off the bench for us, and he's not done anything that sort of stands out really, so we're sort of keeping him as is. Greg Wynn hasn't played any games, so we'll leave him. Same with Chris Demore, he's sort of been in and out. Ike Augustin is sort of one of our main stars, as we've touched on many times before, and he's had a fairly good season. I mean, for me personally, I'm fairly disappointed by him, really. I think his shooting isn't as good as what I thought it would be. I mean, we haven't had any sort of time to sort of focus on fixing some of his shooting preferences. As you can sort of see, if we sort of flick back here, you can see he's very heavy on shot and very heavy on the jumper, but his jumper isn't particularly great in mid-court. Well, not in mid-court, in mid-range really. So perhaps that's something we might want to think at, but obviously being a senior, probably don't want to spend too much time. I mean, he's had to take on a lot of the scoring load for us this year, but he's been... I expected him to make more of a jump than he has, to be honest with you. That may be a bit harsh, but that's what I think. Derek Hawkins hasn't played, so we'll leave him. Derek Lemons is one of these intriguing guys for me. I mean, he has some really good ball handling skills for a small forward. His defence is not too great, but it's okay. And he's a fairly intelligent player. And we have used him in sort of limited minutes this year. I mean, he hasn't done anything that sort of makes me sort of want to stand up and put him in more minutes. I mean, he's one we'll probably have to try and keep an eye on, try and develop next year. In terms of Bruce Jackson, he hasn't really played. I'm not going to comment on him. Jim Claggett's the one that's sort of stood out for me this year so far. He's had an injury and he's sort of come back and he's really cemented his position really. Like I said, he's undersized at 6'8", and we're playing him in the centre position, but he's been really solid for us. I mean, you can see he's got some excellent range, which is really helpful, especially with us playing the triangle offence. We need people who can stretch the play a bit more. If I had to be picky, I would say he needs to do more in terms of down by the rim, sort of either side of it, and sort of around the key really. You can see he's not particularly a great shooter there, which is surprising because if you sort of step him out, you can see if you step him out, he seems to do a lot better. So, but for me, I think he's done really well, and he's impressed me because he's been playing out of position. I think if we'd have had a proper centre and played him in at his usual position at power forward, he would have done a lot better than this anyway. Ben Sills is, like I said, I never expected him to get any major stats. I'm expecting him to just fill positions and fill minutes for us, and he's done that. He's a fairly good shooter. He doesn't favour the shot a lot. He's very much along the lines of a drive rather than a shot, and which is fine. When he needs to shoot, he seems fairly effective at doing it. Dan Butler was our centre at the start of the season, but we pulled him out because of this terrible rebounding stat that he has. And I'd have to say, in terms of his minutes when he's come in, he's been fairly effective. He's a terrible rebounder, and we know that. But in terms of shooting, he gives us a little something. James McCain hasn't played, so we'll leave him. And then that's sort of us back round. So in terms of where we're sort of looking at, I mean, for me, I think the future for this team is going to be focused around the likes of probably Ben Sills. Try and see whether we can get him to be, take more shots, because he's a fairly good shooter, and whether we can get more out of this backcourt next season will be a question for us. We'll see what the new guys look like when they come in, and obviously we'll recap that when that happens. But for me, I've been really happy with how the team's performed. Just looking here, just surprised that Ben Sills was a walk-on. That's a surprisingly really good walk-on for us. But just going back, I mean, I think in terms of the season, I'm really happy that we've managed to achieve these over 15 wins that we were set at the beginning of the season already, and we're still in the mix. Like I said, we've got 2 games left, and if we can sort of keep the momentum up, we can hopefully get into the postseason, which would be fantastic for our first year. In terms of who we've got to play next, you can see we've got 2 really tough games. We've got DePaul and Seton Hall. Obviously, we know Seton Hall are well away in terms of the lead. I think they've tied up the first position. No one's going to catch them now. DePaul's going to be a real challenge for us. This is the game that I think we need to win. You can see they're sitting at 8-8. We're sitting at 9-7. They still have a little bit of an outside shot of making sort of the postseason. For us, we need to get that win. And you can see here that, looking at who they played last time, they beat Seton Hall. So they're coming off a really strong win. I mean, we know if we look at Seton Hall, I sort of commented on last time, but they're really struggling because one of their main stars, Brian Belair's, is out with a broken nose. So they've been sort of going hit and miss. If we look at their schedule since his sort of injury, that they've obviously been on a streak, and then they've sort of been in sort of losses and wins throughout the rest of the season. So for us, DePaul is going to be a massive game, and we'll look at their scouting in a minute. And hopefully we can get something against Seton Hall. I mean, when we played them earlier on in the season, if I scroll up, it was really close. We only lost by 7, and we had, you know, if we hadn't had that terrible start, we may have been in it more. And for me, I think with Belair's out, you know, who dominated us last time, we have an outside shot of winning that game. And I think, for me, I think we need to win one of those games. If we can go 1-1, that'll leave us with a 10-8 record, which will hopefully keep us in the mix. So let's take a look at the scouting and see what they think. So obviously DePaul's our sort of first game we've got. You can see here that in terms of matchups, they seem to think that DePaul is going to win the backcourt with Hancock and Willis, who are, you know, a little bit more of a scoring guard rotation than what we've got, which is fair enough. Augustine and Green's a little bit of a miss in terms of, you know, it's going to balance out. Same with Seals and Carr. And then Barker and Claggett. Hopefully Claggett can perform for us against Barker, who, you know, doesn't seem to put up too many stats. Seems to be a similar height, similar build, which will really help Claggett in that he finally won't be, you know, undersized against someone. If we look at their style, it looks like this says they run a normal paced offense with some offensive freedom in the basket. In the half court, they run a balanced attack with primary set being triangle offense. So it's going to be a battle of the triangle offenses, as you guys know. That's the strategy that we run. A lot of our guys are familiar with that strategy, so that's why we went and picked that. Looking at the defence, DePaul presses on occasion in the half court. Their primary defence is man to man, and for pressure defence, they go with a full court man to man. So it's going to be again a similar sort of bat-up. We obviously play man to man as well. So in terms of the strategy, it's going to be pretty even. It's going to come down to who stands out and who performs in terms of player personnel. So that's going to be a real tough game, and I think for me that's the one. If we can win that one, that will just give us the extra win that I think we need. Obviously we've got Seton Hall as well. Interested to see who they're going to play into the Belair's, and it looks like they've put, I want to say that's Killen in. Killen looks like he's gone in. A freshman's gone in there, and it looks like they seem to think that with Belair's out, we're going to win that sort of front court matchup really, with Claggett against Worley and Seals against Killen. So that's really interesting. Hopefully we can make that an advantage with him being out injured and steal a win from them. In the backcourt, it looks like fairly even in terms of Cook and Griffin here, and it looks like Hayes. Obviously Hayes is their other star, probably is their main star against Brown. So a lot of this will come down to whether Brown can stop Hayes enough and you know, limit his points that he scores. In terms of their offense, again they play a bit of a triangle offense, and their defense is very similar to us. So again, it's going to be down to player personnel. Hopefully we can pull one out of the bag here. And like I said, guys, I think for me, I think if we can go 1-on-1, that'd be fantastic. Just briefly touching a lot across the other sort of teams in our conference. We've talked about Seton Hall Pirates before. They're the only ranked team within our conference. Georgetown, as I sort of said at the beginning of the season, we're going to be one of those who are going to be up there. I'm really happy that we went 1-1 in terms of our games against them, so that was really good. Same with Villanova, we went 1-1, which was really good. Then there's us, and then there's Butler. So I feel we're kind of, if I had to pick in terms of how our conference sort of sits, I think Seton Hall are the standout team. Whether the injury to Belair's is going to affect them in the postseason, that'll be really, really interesting to see. For us, I think we're kind of borderline second tier, I think, at the moment, based on sort of how we've been performing this year. We're sort of in with the pack of Georgetown, Villanova and Butler, and probably DePaul. I think that's probably the second tier. I know I'm naming a lot of teams in this conference, but I feel that's sort of the middle of the pack tier really. And then looking down, we've got Creighton, Providence, Xavier and Marquette, who sort of are, well, I say probably, if we say Creighton, Providence, Xavier, they're probably the tier 3. They're probably the sort of the bottom half of our sort of conference. And then we've got Marquette, who are sort of on their own down the bottom there, really. Probably in their own sort of tier, really, unfortunately. They just haven't played very well this year at all. So I think it's going to be a real interesting end to the season. And obviously when we come back next time, we'll be talking about these final 2 games. And I think it's going to be crucial. I think, it'd be really hopeful we can get into the postseason. And we'll do a little bit of a season recap next time in terms of what we think of our staff, what we think we're going to do in terms of our assistants. Are we going to, try and move someone and get someone else in? Obviously, Barry Rawson is sort of our main elite assistant, really. The other 2 are a little bit of a mixed bag, so perhaps we might want to try and upgrade that a little bit. Obviously, that's if we do stay. I mean, the St John's may well fire us, but I think it's very highly unlikely now that we've secured over 15 wins and we're probably going to finish in the top half of the conference. Doubt we're going to qualify for the NCAA tournament. We'll have to have a really good postseason to do that, and hopefully we'll improve the school prestige by sort of performing really well in the final 2 games and getting into that top half of the conference. In terms of other news that's going on, just before we sort of wrap up, really, the Norton semi-finalists have been announced. So this is the award that they award in college basketball for that demonstrates an athlete who is a high-performing athlete in terms of on the court and off the court. So someone who is excelling in their study and also performing really well in the court, on the court, really. So you can sort of see that there's no one, I don't think there's anyone from our conference who actually made the final cut, really. And like I said before, guys, when we get to the finalists, we'll sort of do a little bit of a recap and sort of take a look at them in a little bit more detail. In terms of our league leaders, I don't think a great deal has changed there. I think it's still fairly similar to when we last touched on it. In terms of us, I mean, Hayes is obviously the elite shooting guard, getting some really good points. Augustine and Claggett are sort of our main 2 in there. If we look at the assists, again, it's the same sort of thing. Cook and Brown sort of middling of the pack, really. In terms of rebounds, Seals and Claggett are in there, but Belair's is obviously going well away with that one. In terms of blocks, Abraham Love, the other elite sort of forward player, sort of wrapping that one up, really. And in steals, again, someone from Creighton, Jason Augustine, sort of stealing that one, really. So I think this is pretty much as is now. I mean, if we look at our team stats, let's take a little look at how we've been shaping up on offense and defense. So in terms of our, let's go to miscellaneous, I think it's on. No, it's not miscellaneous. Where is it? Here we go, I've got to click advanced, there we go. So in terms of our offense, I mean, let's look at our offensive efficiency. So, we're in the top 4 of offensive efficiency. As we sort of pointed out before, our 3-point shooting has really held us together this year. And in terms of our style of play, in terms of our defensive efficiency, let's have a look at that. So in terms of defensive efficiency, we're proving that we're one of the better defensive teams as well, which is really good to see. Especially since we're playing a lot of undersized ball. Really, we're not dominating rebounds. We're not forcing and not pressing too much. I mean, the strategy that I've gone with this year, as you sort of guys may know, is we've gone a lot with just man-to-man and some zone defense and a little bit of pressing at times. But in terms of how we sort of press, we're rarely sort of pressing in terms of full court, but we're being really aggressive in terms of our defensive intensity, and it's really good to see that that's sort of coming through in terms of looking at the advanced stats. How do we sort of do in terms of the offense? Like I sort of said, offense has been a bit of a mixed bag for us, but as I said, the 3-point shooting is sort of held us together with that one. In terms of tempo, we're sort of fairly quick tempo, but I'm really happy with how we've been doing in terms of, if you look at our offensive efficiency here, 55, and our defense efficiency 53.8. So obviously we're sort of more balanced, which is really good. that's always a promising sign. If your offensive efficiency is higher than your defensive efficiency, for me that's always a good thing. If you can sort of limit the opposition on defense and you can score relatively well, that's always promising. I've never been one to massively focus on offense. I've been always focused on sort of defense. If we can get good defenders in, it makes a huge difference. So that's where I'm going to wrap it up today, guys. As I sort of said, we're 9-7. We've got 2 games left, and those 2 games are going to be so crucial to determining whether we're going to a postseason or whether we're just back here again reviewing, hopefully looking towards next season with St John's. If you've got any thoughts or views around, what we should potentially be doing over the off season, in terms of coaching, in terms of thinking about a different type of strategy, then put it in the comments section below. And as always, guys, if you like the episode, just hit the thumbs up button and the subscribe button if you want to follow them as they come out, as soon as they hit the press.